This program is brought to you by Emory University.
We are really fortunate today to have as our speaker Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald. And I asked her how I should introduce her in the beginning. First of all, you might want to know how you could get the Commissioner of Public Health, who has got to run public health for the entire state, 159 counties, 19 public health districts, who's in the city of Atlanta, who has all kinds of politicians and everybody pulling at her every way all the time, how we could get her to come over here to spend all this time. Well, we sucked her into this by appealing to the soft side of saying that this is the future of public health, and it's important to mentor young people and to show strong leadership. And it's important for them to see you for your strong leadership. She's also been inducted into Delta Omega Honorary Society of Public Health. She's a graduate of Emory University School of Medicine and did her OBGYN training here. And she's also a member of our faculty, an adjunct member of our faculty in the Rollins School of Public Health, and as well as previously a faculty member in the School of Medicine. So she's practiced medicine for over 30 years in Georgia. She's also held the rank of Major in the U.S. Air Force, and she's been involved in a lot of things. But when I think about Brenda Fitzgerald, I really think of public service. She's somebody who just can't seem to do enough. I started out in OBGYN and got sidetracked into public health about 40 years ago, but I know how busy OBGYN doctors are, and I know that when you want to get involved in women's health, children's health, politics and public health, be the head of your Rotary Club in your community, be on every single board related to education or children's services, that you have to be somebody who is really committed to public service. So we were fortunate when last year for the very first time, Governor Deal took the recommendation to have a separate department of public health, that he named Brenda Fitzgerald to be the first Commissioner of Public Health in the history of the state of Georgia. And she brought that passion and commitment to public service to that role. And I'm honored to serve on her board, to see her dedication to make things better for people in the state of Georgia. So, Brenda Fitzgerald.
It was easy to get me to come here today. Al, you work for me now. I'm looking for more. I want all of you to work for me tomorrow, so I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was real. There are at least two very important things that happened on the Ides of March. The first was associated with death, deceit, and destruction. And the second was associated with life, truth, and healing. If I say to you, et tu, Brute, you may remember that the Ides of March, of course, was when Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. That led to civil war, and it was a turning point in Roman history. The happier event occurred on the Ides of March in 1813. John Snow was born in London, England. As a teenager, John Snow was apprenticed to a surgeon in Newcastle and saw his first case of cholera at age 18. It was recognized as a real threat to humanity because at that time, since about 1932 in London, there was recurrent episodes of cholera. And one thing you should tuck away in your, I knew that category is, cholera was the first reportable disease in the United States, which of course is important for us. By age 36, John Snow had completed his training as a physician, and he, observing the recurrent epidemics of cholera, had formulated a theory. And his theory was that cholera was a waterborne infection, and that was what was causing its spread. He was ignored by the authorities because the prevailing theory at that time is that all diseases like cholera or bubonic plague were caused by miasma, bad air. If you can remember that time, Pasteur's work would not be done to propagate the germ theory of disease for at least 10 years. And if you lived in London in 1850, there was plenty of reason to believe that miasma caused disease. It's important to know that there were only 2 cities at that point that had ever housed 1 million people. And London in 1850 was the largest city in the world, the largest city that had ever been. There were 2.3 million people in it now. In contrast, at that same time in New York City, there were only 500,000. It was a rapidly growing city, and it was overcome by increasing population. Victorian life was on a dead collision course with urban development. Daily necessities were difficult. Water was obtained from the River Thames in public pumping stations, or if you were rich, you had one of the companies like Southwark to bring water from the Thames to your house. For removal of waste, there were some sewers, but the most common thing was to have a cesspit under your home. And in those cesspits, the waste would collect 2 and 3 feet deep, and there were over 200,000 such pits in the city of London. Miasma indeed. You could certainly believe it was real. The smell was terrible, and most believed that the smell caused terrible diseases. In 1848, the first public health official in London, his name was Edwin Chadwick, he was appointed as the first sanitary commission of London, and he believed in the miasma theory. So he said, what we have to do is we have to get rid of these standing cesspits. We really have to empty out the cesspits more often so there won't be so much miasma. And he passed a law called the nuisance law that required such a thing. He improved the sewers a little bit, but mostly it was the more rapid turnover of the cesspits. And those cesspits were dumped directly to be taken away in the River Thames. Remember the primary source of water for the population at that time. So one lesson you need to remember from history is that these early public health efforts, because they were based on wrong information, quite possibly caused more cholera. August of 1854, there was another severe cholera epidemic. In London, in the neighborhood of Soho, near where John Snow lived, 10% of the population died within 7 days. So John Snow went into action. He began his investigation. His words, "On proceeding to the spot, I found that nearly all of those deaths had taken place within a short distance of the Broad Street pump. There were only 10 deaths decidedly nearer another pump, and of those, 5 families preferred the water at the Broad Street pump, and 3 children had gone to school near the Broad Street pump." He had been ignored before, but this time when he talked to the authorities at the St. James Parish, they believed him, and in the morning of September the 8th, 1854, the handle of the Broad Street pump was removed and the epidemic abated. We learned later that there indeed was one of these cesspools about 3 feet from the Broad Street pump, and it had been contaminated by a child who had cholera and whose nappy was rinsed into that cesspool. John Snow's ideas, even after that episode, were not universally accepted. That's the second message you want to take home. You want to get it right, and you have to be persistent. But he had influenced enough people that the next time cholera raised its ugly head in London, enough people believed him that the order went out to boil water, and that was the very last cholera epidemic that London ever saw. Now, cholera still remains a significant threat to modern man. It affects 3 to 5 million people per year, and it's responsible for 100,000 so deaths per year. It's mostly in underdeveloped countries, where there's contamination of the drinking water by human waste, the same causes in London. In Haiti, in 2010, there was an exception to this rare occurrence in undeveloped parts of the world. Haiti had the world's largest epidemic in recent history. There were over 500,000 cases reported and over 700 deaths. And this was unusual because Haiti had never reported a cholera outbreak before. You may remember that that was the year of the Haiti earthquake. It had devastated the infrastructure in Haiti, and certainly the prevailing vision and the prevailing knowledge was that it was probably because of the earthquake, that there'd been a destruction of the infrastructure, the water had been contaminated, and that's what caused the epidemic. However, when you looked at it a little further, there were some interesting facts. First of all, because of the earthquake, the UN had responded, and they'd sent a force of peacekeepers from Nepal to Haiti in 2010. Those of you from that part of the world, or those of you skilled in geography, will know that Bengal, which is the epidemic center of persistent cholera, is right below Nepal, from whence these troops came. And it also, you may not know, but in July of that year, 2010, there had been a cholera outbreak in Nepal. The troops arrived in Haiti October the 9th, and by October the 18th, there were reports of increasing sickness, of watery diarrhea in the surrounding communities. Reporters noted that there were some sanitation problems near the camp, and what they reported was that the cesspool was very near the river where the community got its drinking water. Does it sound familiar? However, the UN investigated, they looked at the clinic records from the Nepal army, and there were no records of severe disease. And so when they said, we'd like to culture some people, they said, there's nobody to culture, nobody's sick, we don't need to do that. And the military actually refused to do any cultures. There's one other small fact that you need to know to round out this tale. And that is, with cholera, for every case of active cholera, there are at least 3 or maybe as many as 100 asymptomatic cases. And it's true that no one looked sick in the Army, but the reality is when testing was done, when sequencing was done on the genome of the bacteria of the people in Haiti who were affected, there were very few variations, which of course you know means it was probably a single source. And oh, by the way, that variant was almost identical to a variant that had caused the cholera outbreak in northern India about 2 years before. Oh, by the way. Both London and Haiti have the same message. We must not passively accept prevailing wisdom. We need to seek the truth wherever it may be found. To borrow a line from the Game of Thrones, if you are watching that, you know nothing, Jon Snow. Whether it is a new twist on an old disease like cholera, or a completely new threat like HIV, or a variation of a threat like H7N9, there are always new dangers around us. We are here to celebrate the fact that you are now formally educated. You are taking as your life's work to observe, to collect, and to analyze data so that you can prevent disease and illness. It's a meaningful, exciting, and important work. Like Jon Snow, do not settle for prevailing wisdom. Observe, 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 write and share your observations, analyze what you see, and then, like Jon Snow, test your theories in the real world. Jon Snow's work obviously led to the founding of the science of epidemiology. His work made urban life possible. Certainly without his efforts, we could not have a city, the most populous city today is Tokyo with 35 million people. We could certainly not have a city of that size and expect it to be sustainable. I do not know what challenges you will face or what dangers you will uncover, But as surely as night follows day, there will be new dangers and there will be new threats that will require new information and new expertise on your part. With your graduation, the mantle is passing to you. You are the next generation of truth seekers. I have one simple request, and that is protect us. Congratulations on your graduation, and Godspeed.